Imagine you've been driving for hours on a lonely stretch of highway. The night is thick, the road is empty, and sleep keeps tugging at your eyelids. Then you see it in the distance, a single flickering light, a motel sign. Relief, or so you think. Tonight's story is about a woman who thought she was just stopping to rest. But the room she chose had other plans. I'm Dr. LaWanna Parker, and I want to welcome you to a very special Halloween reading. A tale of exhaustion, temptation, and the darkness that waits behind one wrong door. So grab your blanket, turn down the lights, and listen closely. This is Room 2. Anne Shepherd jerked the car back onto her side of the road as she realized she had dozed off. The car drifted toward the other side of the lane. She blinked her eyes rapidly, hoping to remove the sleep from them. The hasty beatings of her heart threatened to rip it out of her body. She needed to find a motel or bed, and breakfast soon, or she would have to pull over to the side of the road and sleep in her car. She was having difficulty keeping her eyes open. She had no intention of dying out here on some lonely highway after finally having the freedom and the money to do the things she had waited for all her life. The opportunity to do what she wanted with her life. Anne drove for another 10 minutes when she spotted a single light in the distance. Please, 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 she prayed. Let it be a place to stay for the night. She concentrated on seeing the light as if it were her lifeline. Oh, thank God, it was a motel. Although it looked empty of customers. The lighted sign sat a little back from the road, and the only part of the lit sign was the word motel. As she pulled off the empty highway into the drive leading up to the motel office, she thought the place looked deserted. In fact, the whole place looked eerie and creepy. She leaned over her steering wheel to look at the house set back from the motel. It had the look of a home from another time, another era. It didn't help to relieve her uneasiness. For an instant, she thought she saw a light flicker on and then off. She watched for a moment longer to see if it would happen again. After staring a minute longer, she gave up and looked back at the motel. The place seemed lonely, but there was a light in the office. She had not noticed that before. She sat there a while watching the light for some indication of movement in the office. She took another long look at the rest of the motel. If any other occupants were staying here, none of them had transportation. There were no cars parked in front of any of the motel rooms. Maybe she should look for another place to stay. This one didn't feel right. After arguing with herself for several moments, she decided sleeping on the side of the road in her car would be too uncomfortable and dangerous. And since she did not know how far the next motel stop might be, it could prove fatal to continue driving when she could barely keep her eyes open. The decision made, she grabbed her purse, took her suitcase from the back seat, and headed for the office. The office was well lit, but it felt cold and unfriendly. It was creepy, like the outside, and the house was sitting a little apart from the motel. She set her suitcase down and rubbed her arms as she looked around. No one was at the front desk or anywhere else. Hello, is anyone here? She called out. She waited a moment, then spotted the bell at the end of the counter by the door leading to another room. She walked over to the bell, pressed it a couple of times. Hello, I want a room. Would you like a room toward the back or up front? A voice asked before a man appeared in the room's doorway by the counter. He looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s. He smiled, but Anne was noticing his eyes. One was blue and the other was brown. The brown eyes seemed warm and friendly, like his smile. It was the blue eye that held her attention. It appeared angry and icy cold. Oh, Anne jumped and pressed her hand over her heart when she heard the voice speak to her before he stepped into the doorway. You frightened me. I want a room up front. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Will you be staying more than one night? Just for the night. I'm too sleepy to drive any further. Sign here and I'll get you a key. We only take cash and that'll be $52.99. I don't know if I have that much cash. Anne said as she started searching her purse. Oh, you're in luck. Or I'm in luck. Here's 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. That's all I have. Good thing I only need one night. Checkout's at 10, the desk clerk said as he handed her the key. It's late. I'll walk you to your room. Thank you. Anne picked up her suitcase before the clerk could and followed him out of the office. The clerk walked down to the second room from the office and stood while Anne unlocked the door. We don't see many people out this way since the new highway was put in more than 5 years back. Oh, I didn't realize another highway was out this way. I did think it seemed more than a little deserted, even though it is the wee hours of the morning. Well, thank you for seeing me to my room. Good night. She picked up her suitcase and pushed the door open. The clerk followed her in before she could close the door. Excuse me, but it's late and I'm too tired for any company. I didn't plan on staying. I thought I would check, make sure everything was in working order. As I said, we don't get many people stopping here for a room. Anne was uncomfortable with him in the room, so she stood by the door as he checked the closet and the bathroom. Coming back into the room, he walked toward her and smiled. It was unnerving to see the one warm and friendly eye while the others looked as if it wanted to cut her heart out. It almost appeared as if two people were standing before her. One was happy to be with her, and the other was angry and unfriendly. Everything looks to be in working order, he said as he stopped before her. Well, thanks again. I'll be checking out early, so I'll leave the key on the bed, she said as she stepped aside for him to leave. He shrugged his shoulders. If that's what you want. I'm up pretty early myself. Well, good night. Sleep well. The clerk walked around in and out the door and quickly closed and locked the door, then leaned against it in relief. She stayed at the door a moment longer before taking her suitcase, placing it at the end of the bed, and sitting down. She lied back on the bed with one arm over her eyes, grabbed a handful of the bedspread with the other, and started rubbing the material between her fingers. She always did that when she was thinking or worried. Something wasn't right about this motel and that clerk. He was a nice looking man once you got past that blue eye. Being lean, he looked taller until he stood next to her. Just as soon as she rested a bit, she would take a shower and get some sleep. Then she would get the blank out of here. She didn't feel comfortable staying here. Tomorrow would be the start of a new life for her. With her newfound riches, she could get a place and take her time looking for the perfect job. She wouldn't have to settle for just any old job. She started chuckling to herself. She had plenty of money now. The money she was supposed to have deposited in the bank for her boss. Her boss, the old man Sims, would have a heart attack when he discovered his trusted secretary had left town with his money. Man, the things she would be able to do with $500,000. The old reprobate. She had earned every penny of that money and more. She shuddered when she remembered the things she had done, the pinching and the squeezing when he thought no one was in the office noticing, the things he did with her in bed. She was sick thinking of all the things she had allowed him to do so that she could keep her job. He felt she would be pleased because he paid her a salary above what other secretaries received, and he wanted her. Well, the laugh was on him. She was now, excuse me, she was now compensated for the extra work on his behalf. Excuse me, sorry about that. You have to get up and turn on the heat. Well, the laugh was on him. She was now compensated for her extra work on his behalf. Sure to get up and turn on the heat, she thought as her eyes drifted closed in sleep. What do you think of her? James asked. Her? Who? The girl you put in room two? Who else would I ask about? We don't have anyone else staying here. She's all right, but she's not interested in you or me. They never are. You always say that. You always frighten them away. Look, James, you asked. I gave my opinion. Except that it's just the two of us. And that's how it will always be, Jim said. His one blue eye narrowed to an icy cold blue. If you're thinking of having anything to do with her, forget it. You might like her being here, Jim. Don't you get tired of it always being just the two of us? You take up with her, and I'm leaving. Or worse, I'll make you sorry, and you know I can. Why do you always have to act this way? You might like her. That's what you said about the others. In the end, I had to take care of them. It's still just the two of us. Accept it. You scared the others off. Is that what you really believe? What do you mean? Think about it. I'm tired of talking. I need some rest. Don't you do anything to hurt her. I won't do anything you don't want me to. Good night. I need rest. Anne bolted upright in bed and stared at the wall across from her for several moments before remembering she was in a motel. She must have fallen asleep soon after lying down across the bed. Her legs felt thick and heavy from lying so long in a dangling position. She glanced around quickly. She suddenly felt uneasy. She was alone, and everything looked as it had before she fell asleep. But something didn't feel right. She was being watched. Something was watching her. She glanced around the room again, only much more slowly. There were no detectable cameras or noticeable peepholes. She jumped up from the bed. She felt that she needed to get away from this place. She sensed something sinister was about, and this hatred was aimed directly at her. She swirled around, looking again for evidence that something was watching her. There was nothing, yet she knew she was in danger. Terror struck at her heart like a sledgehammer. Oh God, oh God, oh God, what's happening? She grabbed her purse and keys in one hand and the suitcase with the other. She moved quickly for the door, but abruptly stopped when she heard a distinct scraping noise at the door. She stared at the doorknob when it started to turn. Oh God, who's there? This room is taken. She called out as tears of fear started tracking down her face. There was no answer. She was almost paralyzed with fear. As the door moved inward, she turned and made a mad dash to the bathroom. She slammed the door shut and leaned against it, looking around for something to defend herself with. Something or someone hit the door hard, and she almost fell to her knees. What do you want? Please, just leave me alone, she cried out. She could put nothing behind the door to hold it in place. She looked at the suitcase she was still holding on to. It was too small and light to hold against the door. Please, just go away, she whispered as another slam came against the door. The door seemed ready to give at any moment. Anne rushed over to the bathtub with the suitcase and stepped in, pulling the shower curtain for cover while trying to hold the suitcase for protection against an unknown enemy. She huddled against the wall as she heard the door splinter and something shoved into the room. She held the suitcase up before her as if it could somehow help her to become invincible as she tried not to make a sound. Her heart was hammering hard and she was having difficulty breathing. Her brandy-colored eyes stared at the curtain in wide-eyed terror when the shadow of a body appeared on the shower curtain. The curtain was suddenly jerked back and Anne started screaming. For an instant her fear turned to surprise, then terror as the knife came down. She pushed the suitcase at the clerk as she tried to get away. She lost her balance and slipped and fell, still screaming and fighting with all her weakening strength. As the scream slowly slipped to silence, her last thoughts were the money in the suitcase and how unfair it was that her life should end now in a seedy motel. Jim looked down at the mutilated lump of flesh in the bathtub. He felt nothing for what had once been a woman except that she would not come between him and James. He had warned James it was just the two of them. It would always be just the two of them. He smiled, and for once there was some warmth in his blue eye as he watched the lifeblood of his victim flow down the drain. He would have to clean this up and get rid of the body before James found out what he had done. He picked up her car keys and wiped the knife on the towel as he walked out the bathroom. He smiled again. He had to get back before James woke. He took her room key from the bed before leaving the motel and, and put it on the counter in the office. He got in her car and drove it to a grove of trees with thick foliage near the motel. The car was hidden from James. Tonight, he would get rid of the body, and James would choose to believe she had left of her own volition, like all the others. It really was for the best. After all, who could take better care of James than he could? And there you have it, room two. Sometimes the places we stumble into on dark roads aren't meant to offer rest. They're meant to remind us that not every light in the night is safe. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more tales that whisper from the heart and sometimes from the shadows and keep you looking twice before checking in anywhere alone.